Hey everyone. My name is Danny Dunstan. I'm the Chief of Staff in the President's Office. I appreciate you all taking the time to join this town hall today. So I am stalling a little bit, so as people jump on the call. All right, I'll just get started. So thanks everyone for being here. My hope for today is that I can spend a few minutes updating you all on where the university is in relation to our COVID-19 response and planning for recovery, and then open up the rest of the time today to answer any questions that you might have. So I'll jump into the updates. But before I do that, I want to start and just say thank you. I know that the last couple of months haven't been easy. I know that routines, normal workflow, team dynamics have been incredibly altered, and it has been rough. But thank you so much for continuing to show up, either at home or on campus. Thank you for your continued efforts to move the university and our mission forward, and the commitment you have demonstrated to our students. So I'll jump into the updates. First, the incident management team has been working to finalize a reopening plan that mirrors and is compliant with the governor's Idaho Rebound plan. This will have us move towards normal operation in a phased approach. As the state of Idaho moves forward in a stage, we will also adjust and relax our restrictions on campus. If we have the unfortunate scenario where the state moves back a stage, we will then tighten our restrictions accordingly. So that communication about that plan will be sent out this week, so employees have that. We'll continue to telework wherever possible into the next couple of stages, so we'll continue our kind of current operational level pretty similar in the next week or so. So our plan is to be fully operational this fall, but of course we have to ensure that we have contingency plans in place. So there is a fall working group that has been charged with ensuring that we are ready to serve our students, whatever the eventuality may be once we get to the fall. So we're working on that. And the final update I want to provide you is related to the budget process, as I know that that has been probably on everyone's mind. Last week, each college and division of the university presented their budget for consideration to the Leadership Council. And those budget proposals included scenarios that had 4%, 5%, and 6% reductions included in them. And the Leadership Council reviewed those and recommended how to proceed with those reductions to the Administrative Council. And this week, the Administrative Council finalized the decisions on the budget. A video will be sent out hopefully tomorrow outlining those decisions to campus, but I'll just provide kind of a high-level overview. We were able to eliminate approximately $11.9 million from the base budget over 2 years. And we, if you saw Kevin's couple videos ago, he did a video on the budget. We have about a $16 million shortfall. So we have already implemented or will be implementing some additional measures to help with the budget, including the hiring freeze that's in place. And furloughs are being considered as well, which those measures will help us alleviate that $16 million shortfall. I would note that that $16 million assumes that enrollment is flat. If we drop an enrollment over the summer or in the fall, that budget shortfall will grow. So luckily, we do have institutional reserves, and that will help us in the short term as we permanently rebalance our budget so it doesn't run a year-over-year deficit. So for our division of the President's Office, which includes the President's Office, Marketing Communications, Internal Audit, General Counsel, and University Events. This will mean that we'll have to tighten our belts. Marketing Communications significantly reduced operating expenses, which means we'll have to watch expenditures very closely. Our special events budget that Allison manages was reduced significantly, so we'll have to do events very differently and scaled down. And then for university events, the special Stevens Performing Arts Center in Holt, there was a reduction in the temporary salary pool to help with the deficit. The president's office eliminated a couple of positions and is decreasing its operating expenditures. The general counsel's office budget remains largely consistent. Until we have a new general counsel in that role, we didn't make significant changes to that budget. However, the records management position and program funding was returned to central to help with the deficit. So that concludes my update. I know these are really challenging times, but I think we're poised to come together to overcome these challenges and move forward to a brighter future. I'm really confident in this because I know how hard all of you work. I know your level of dedication to our mission, and I know that as a team, we are really strong. So now I'll open it up for questions. Ginny Larimore is on the call, and she's going to help moderate this session. So Ginny, if you wouldn't mind taking a quick moment to explain how to submit questions.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Danny. Okay, so you have a couple of options for submitting questions. The first is to submit a question to everyone in the group, and so I've submitted a sample one just so you can see. So if you are unfamiliar with the chat feature, let's start at the beginning. You just hover over the video and then go to the icon at the bottom that says chat. That will open up your chat feature, and because I just sent you one, you should get a notification that you have one. So options for asking the questions: number one is typing here to everyone, and number two is if you'd like to submit an anonymous question or just send it to me directly, you can. Anything that you send to me directly will be anonymous, and I will just ask Danny anonymously. So to do that, you'll just find my name or start typing my name, and then you'll know that you're talking just to me if you're typing and it says Ginny Larimore and then privately. That is basically it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them now or via chat.
And I'll do my best to answer whatever questions, and if I don't know the answer to the question, we'll take note of it. Jen, if you wouldn't mind taking note of any question that I might not know an answer to, and we'll get responses out. Or Ginny, whoever can help me with that would be great.
You got it.
Do it, Danny. This is Jen. Ginny, you can just moderate.
Okay, Danny, we have our first question. So furloughs have been talked about as being on the table. I have friends at different organizations that have already been told how long they will be furloughed for, 3 weeks. Although I know that nothing has been settled, can you give us an idea of how long of a furlough that we might be looking at? This would make a big difference on how much of my stimulus to set aside for lost wages for a furlough. A couple of days versus several weeks is a big difference in the way of planning for our family's budget.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll first talk a little bit about the process. So to get approval to move forward with a furlough plan, we need that approval from the Division of Human Resource and Financial Management. So we have drafted a draft of a conceptual plan that's with them to review. We are exploring a tiered plan based on salary. So higher wage individuals would take more furlough days than lower wage individuals. The max that we are considering right now for that highest tier is 13 days. And I would note that that hasn't been decided, with the lower tier being most individuals would be around 2 to 6 days, but it would be tiered on salary. And we hope to have more information on that plan, if approved, announced in the next couple of weeks.
Okay. Next question, Danny. How much money is in the reserves?
Oh, I I will not get this accurate, so I'll have Jen take note of getting the correct answer. I believe that we have in our appropriated reserves around 70 million. I would note that to maintain financial equilibrium, you do need to maintain a significant reserve of, I believe, and I shouldn't guess, but we would need to maintain, 40 to 60 million. And I would think closer to 40 to just maintain our level of operations. But we do have enough in our reserves to help, we're calling it a glide path, to help us get through this difficult budget season and help us work our way over a couple of years to get back to a balanced budget where we don't run a deficit.
Next question, Danny. Under what criteria can empty positions be filled?
So right now, the hiring freeze, the process for that is empty positions. You submit your normal HR paperwork, and then HR is compiling all those open positions and routing them to the administrative council. And the administrative council is looking at primarily the position's essential nature. So if it's contributing to life safety functions for campus, they're moving those positions forward. If it relates directly to student retention or student recruitment, those positions are moving forward. Or if the position is grant funded, so external funding, those positions are moving forward. So those are some of the criteria that the administrative council is looking at. And then once they approve a position, it's submitted to the Division of Human Resources to receive approval at that level, and then it moves forward. So we will revisit the hiring freeze in the coming weeks and months as we set our FY21 budgets and know to the extent we'll need to lean on that hiring freeze to realize salary savings. But right now, that's where we're at.
Danny, next question. With the budget cuts, will there be forced or encouraged early retirement for those who are close to retirement?
No. The early retirement incentive programs were explored. At this time, we will not be exploring those primarily because of guidance we've received from the Division of Human Resources that as a state entity, those programs are not being explored.
Okay. Next question, regarding fall enrollment, are there early projections?
We do have kind of our standard enrollment management figures that we can look at to kind of project where enrollment would be. We look at the number of students admitted, the number of students registered for fall. We do not have a clear understanding of what COVID-19, how that is going to change student behavior. So I would say that no, we don't have good projections. Our admits were actually up. We think that our recruiting efforts and the statewide marketing campaign was yielding some benefit, but it's still pretty uncertain where we'll be in the fall.
Danny, you briefly touched on this. However, will our students be allowed back in the workplace this summer? What is the last day our students will receive pay if they don't return?
The second part of that question, I do not know the answer to that, so we'll take note of that and try to find the answer. We will have those stages of reopening that I mentioned. We will bring people back to campus gradually. And I believe at least the first two stages, we don't have significant amounts of employees coming back to campus, but are still having telework in place. So that would apply to student employees the same as it does our faculty and staff.
Next question, will ISU be putting together a quote unquote ISU Rebound that mirrors the Idaho Rebound, and will they be emailing that to everyone?
Yes, we are working on that. Well, Stuart's probably working on that as we speak, that communication. And I believe it will be called Roaring Back, but it closely mirrors the governor's plan. So anytime the state moves a stage, we will move kind of a level of operation in tandem, and we will use the state as our guide, because they are relying on public health experts from the Department of Health and Welfare and the CDC to guide their decisions.
And the plan is to send that out this afternoon.
Perfect.
Danny, will part-time employees be able to be hired prior to the end of the hiring freeze, specifically with events and event cleanups in mind?
That's a good question. I don't have a good answer for that right now. I think that all positions, regardless if they're part-time, temp, or permanent, should be reviewed for that essential nature. And if there is a feeling that we need to get some folks hired to do some of that, then we should route that through HR to get it reviewed and approved.
Next question, does the hiring freeze also include temp positions or just full-time positions?
I should know that, but I don't. So we'll make a note of that and get that out to everyone.
Okay. We have projects that require travel to northern Utah and Idaho Falls for site visits. Can staff/faculty do this at the moment?
Right now, all non-essential travel is not allowed at this time. As we move a phase, if the state moves a phase, then travel restrictions will lighten a little bit. But we'll be looking at things like does the travel take an individual to a higher risk location? Does the travel, can it be accommodated with proper social distancing? Those types of things will be considered when we move a stage and lighten some of those travel restrictions.
Next question, what plans are being made for faculty and staff that are in the elderly, older age group, high risk category for COVID-19 in the return to campus teaching, research, etc.?
That's still being finalized in the plan. We have identified in the Roaring Back plan those vulnerable populations, and there'll be guidance in the communication about how to manage folks that are among the vulnerable population or caregivers for those in vulnerable populations.
Okay, and while we're waiting on more questions to come in, I would love to ask one, Danny.
Yeah.
What would you like us to focus on right now, or what would you like us to keep in mind? And part two, how can we help administration at this point in time?
Personally, when I think of what can you do during this time, I think first off is take care of yourself. Be cognizant of self-care and how this is a really difficult time, and to be able to show up at work, you first have to take care of yourself. So that's what I would say first off. And then once you do that, as we continue to show up in this new way, just showing up with our students in mind, knowing that this is really hard on them too, and that for many of them, we are their support. So just looking at all of our work through the most student-centric lens that we can. And how to help administration, I mean, you're doing it. We have shown that higher education is just incredibly nimble, and that we can take a university as large and complex as ours, and we can move it online in a matter of weeks, and that we can continue the essential services and people still showing up. So you're already doing it.
Thanks, Danny. Next question, what competitive advantages are we promoting to prospective students that aren't offered universities?
There's so many competitive advantages to Idaho State University. For one, we are just an incredibly student-centric institution that you hear when talking to students that their faculty and the staff they interact with really care about them, and that attention to their needs and their development and their kind of path towards their future, I think is one of our greatest assets among many. But we also we offer over 250 degree programs and everything from career technical programs to PhDs, and we're really serving a comprehensive mission for our region, and in a region that has a low go-on rate. So we offer all of that as a competitive advantage.
Great, next question. We talk about stability as a theme of the university. How will the president continue to enforce stability during a time of massive transition and uncertainty?
Yeah, it's very hard. I think the camaraderie and the team Bengal spirit, we can rely on that, and realizing that we're all in this together. We're all trying to navigate through these uncertain times, these harsh budget environments together. I think he is, reinforcing that we are in this together, and that we will move through this, because there is hope. I mean, the budget presentations that we experienced over the last couple of weeks, they were so thoughtful. They were very, very hard, but they were very thoughtful in making the least negative impact on our students and our institution. And I think through that, it just shows that we can really come together through harsh times and move forward to continue to serve our mission.
Okay, next question. The non-renewal deadline was earlier this week. Can we expect additional layoffs in the coming months?
The non-renewal deadline was the 27th, I believe, so that has passed. There may be additional reductions in force that are being considered as part of the budget efforts. Those final decisions have not been finalized, but we're doing the very best to impact employees as least as possible, knowing that we're our budget definitely needs adjustment to be in equilibrium.
ISU has aging infrastructure. What are the plans to get rid of the buildings that are no longer cost effective to maintain?
Well, I would say that I just met with Vice President Nelson yesterday to talk about some of our facilities projects in the coming years that we hope to do. He is helping us navigate how to manage that deferred maintenance, knowing that we do have budget challenges. But I think most of that effort will probably take place after we complete a strategic planning once we have a new strategic plan, then we'll start an effort to do a physical master plan for the campus, at which point some of those things will be considered more actively.
Danny, Kevin's videos have been helpful to me as an employee. Can we continue to expect to consistently receive this?
Yes, absolutely. We have another one that we're hoping to have done by Friday, if all goes according to plan, if not early next week. But we'll continue those regularly just to keep the communication as consistent and as consistent as possible, and the more communication, the better. So a huge thank you to marketing and communications during this time, because they have just been working so much to keep campus communicated to. They've really come together around this crisis.
Danny, my team will look differently next year. Do you have recommendations for how to build collaboration and stability with my colleagues?
Yeah, I think especially during this time where we can't be face-to-face, being really intentional about how, as a team, you're spending time together, scheduling team meetings to, go over work items, but also just to interact with each other, and doing that consistently, having it on the calendar, I think is really important to stay connected during this time. And then, planning for a time when we can come back together and continuing those practices that we've developed here in this virtual space.
Okay. Will there be transparency, that is letting all know as to what each university administrative unit, college, program, department, area took to meet 4%, 5%, 6% decrease in a budget that the university approved for each administration, each college unit?
Yes, that transparency is very important. So right now, the video we're working on for this week relates specifically to the budget, to go through where those reductions occurred at a high level. In addition, the presentations that all the vice presidents and the deans put together for their units will be published as well. So those can be reviewed. So all that information will be made available.
Sorry, Danny, I was reading questions. Did you say where that would be available?
I know it will be on the website. I could not tell you exactly where, but I think Stuart can unmute.
Yeah, we are planning to post that tomorrow on the budget website. So each of the college and division budgets and presentations will be posted on there so that everyone can see exactly what was proposed.
And Stuart, what is that budget website?
It's isu.edu/budget.
Perfect. Okay. Danny, back to you. Will our current budgeting plan change if we end up having a spike in enrollment?
If our enrollment increases, I think our budget would potentially change. I don't want to speculate too much on how that would change. But one of the things that we're considering, for example, for the furlough plan, for example, there would be a part of that plan where at least half of the days would be taken before December. So in the case that we had a spike in enrollment and our budget situation changed, we could potentially decrease the days the latter half of the year. So some of those things are being explored in the case that we do have an increase in enrollment.
When setting the budget for the president's office, what were the priorities? How were cuts determined?
For the president's, well, for the the president's office itself, which just includes the president's office, those we really looked at what was going to have the least impact on students. And the farther removed the program or activity was from students, the more likely it was to be eliminated. Some things, for example, out of the president's office budget, we had a fund for search firms. So as we needed to hire positions, we might use a search firm, and we won't be doing that moving forward. Some of the events that we do in the community for fundraising or for example, the tailgate events, we've scaled those down considerably to find savings because we didn't feel that would have a direct impact on students. So that was kind of the driving philosophy behind it, and also looking at would the program or activity have impact on our recruitment or retention potential, because the more students we can recruit and the more students we can retain, that makes us more financially stable. So those were some of the guiding principles.
Follow-up question. You mentioned possible reduction in force. Who is this for, faculty or staff? How will reductions in force be determined?
Those are being looked at by college, division by division basis. There's no across the board move. It's really each leader over their area looking strategically about what areas they can scale back and still be as effective as possible. Did that answer the question?
I'll let that person let me know if it did. And we'll ask this one in the meantime. Is the university anticipating any additional relief funding from the federal and state governments?
Yeah, so we are working on making available the federal funds that are available to us. So those come primarily through the CARES Act that was passed through Congress and the president. And that funding comes to us in a couple different ways. One, at least half of the funding we receive from that is allocated directly to students. So that money will essentially pass through us and go directly to our students to help them during this time. And then the other half will help us alleviate some of the direct expenditures we've experienced during this time, or the revenue loss. For example, university events. We had a lot of events on the calendar that brought in a lot of revenue for the university, and having to cancel those was unfortunate and has a budget impact. So some of those federal funds will help backfill some of that.
Okay, next question. We have been told that undergraduate employees cannot return to research labs this summer. However, graduate students can. What is the rationale for this?
I would have to look more into that. I don't know the details of that. So Jen will make a note, and we'll find out more.
Okay. Next question. Will the university continue the strategic planning exercises that were started last year? How do we strategically plan during a time of uncertainty?
That's a great question. We will continue the strategic planning effort. We had a plan for our planning efforts for the strategic plan that would have us a new strategic plan by next summer. We've delayed one phase of that, but we still think we can deliver it on time. I think it's almost beneficial to have where we're at in the process now, because now we can plan for the future, knowing that it will be in a post-COVID world, and be able to help that inform where we go as a university, knowing that we can be as extremely agile and do things in a way that we maybe didn't think we could before, and deliver instruction and service in a different way. So it will continue, and this fall is when those efforts will recommence. And more information is available at isu.edu/strategic plan. I think that's, yep, Stuart's nodding. So that's where you can find more information.
Danny, how does the president feel about our university's response to COVID-19? What concerns does he have about our campus response?
The president has been blown away by this campus's response. The way that everyone has come together, the way that faculty have responded and been just laser focused on the needs of our students. I don't think he has any concerns. It's challenging and difficult, and there were definitely road bumps, but we came together and we're still delivering quality education through distance delivery, and we'll continue to serve our students. So no concerns.
Next question, if furloughs are implemented, how will employees be notified if they are affected?
Employees will be notified via email, and then Human Resources will be there to answer any questions. There'll be a website made available. Impacted employees will definitely have direct communication via email with support from their supervisors and Human Resources.
And a follow-up question, do you know a timeline for when furloughs would be announced, if so?
The goal would be within the next couple weeks. It depends on how quickly we're able to get approval from the Division of Human Resources and Financial Management, and then just putting the communications together. But the sooner we can, the better from our perspective, so we can give faculty and the staff as much planning time as possible.
Okay. And one more question in that category. Would we need to take furloughs this fiscal year like Boise State?
Right now, we have not considered any mandatory furloughs for this fiscal year. And unless something major changes, our goal is to not have any mandatory furloughs this fiscal year. We are exploring voluntary furloughs for this fiscal year for those employees interested in that.
Danny, thanks for doing this town hall. They are helpful to know what the university is doing. Are we going to keep doing these?
The goal is definitely to do another round of town halls for all divisions and colleges. We'd like to do that after the budgets have been set, so we can answer questions related to the FY21 budget. But our goal is to keep doing them. I'm not sure indefinitely what they'll look like, but at least as we navigate through COVID, our goal is to continue to do them.
Back to furlough category. How would voluntary furloughs work? Where would the savings go?
So for all furloughs, regardless if they're voluntary or mandatory, the savings, the salary savings from those actions would be swept centrally to help manage the university's deficit. We do not want individual units to retain those savings because we feel that it might encourage different units to pressure employees to take voluntary furloughs if they don't want to, and that is not the intention. So the furloughs will be swept centrally to help manage the deficit.
Next question, how is the current research funding faculty have and the research indirects being used in the balancing of the budget?
I do not have a good answer for that question, so we'll take note of that. I don't think through this crisis that any change to indirects has occurred, but more specifics on those questions we can follow up with.
Okay. And just to let everybody know, Jen and I, as Danny said, are taking notes on those questions, and I will ask them of Danny anonymously and get back to you with an answer anonymously as well. Okay, next question. Are we going to be changing our recruiting efforts with different strategies, such as offering more online and broader outreach methods?
I also don't have in-depth details of how our enrollment management operations will be different based on where we're at. I know that that organization has done really well to shift and adjust how they do their work. For example, new student orientation was moved to an online format, and they're doing outreach via Zoom and calling prospective students and current students. So they are adjusting how they do things to this digital world, and I am sure that the things that work, they'll continue to employ as we move forward post-COVID.
Next question. I work in a venue on campus that hosts a lot of events. If we are not able to hold events in the fall, will I be employed?
I can't answer any specific questions. Our goal is to continue to, through the phased reopening, some events will be allowed. And we know that once we get through COVID, we intend to have a robust university events function where we continue to, host the large gatherings that, as we have in the past, the long-term future. So I can't answer any specifics because at this point we don't know, but our goal is to keep our functions whole as much as possible, because we do anticipate resuming normal operations down the road.
Okay. We don't have any additional questions at the moment, but that also means there's no waiting if anybody would like to get questions in. And while I was saying that, one came in. Danny, where are research indirects going currently? Are indirects being swept centrally? Are deans using faculty indirects that faculty generate however they choose?
I do not know the answer to that. I apologize, but we'll take note of it and we'll get more information out to you.
We just have a comment. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate the information about our division in the president's office.
Yeah, happy to be here. It's a little intimidating to get a lot of questions all at once, but I appreciate you taking the time, because we have every intention of communicating as holistically as possible, being as transparent as possible, as inclusive as possible. These are tough times, and it's communication is really important. So I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to take any more questions. We still have like more than 15 minutes.
We have another question. Will we be seeing a change in our employment contracts like at will at Boise State?
No, at this time, that is not being explored.
Maybe in closing, can you tell us one thing we need to do to help support enrollment in the fall?
I think it's just having that student-centric lens. We all have very different jobs, and they touch students in very different ways. But approaching our jobs, and even if it's just interacting with employees, having those positive interactions, it multiplies and it trickles to our students. And if you do directly interact with students, I think the biggest thing that can help retention is them feeling a sense of connection to the university, feeling cared about by someone here. So I encourage you to continue to have those positive interactions that give the students that sense of connection and belonging that they need during this hard time.
We do have a follow-up question about the at-will at Boise. What does that mean, at-will?
So, and I don't know the particulars of Boise State's change in their non-classified employee status for the contracts. From what I understand, employees at Boise State were previously issued contracts on an annual basis, and then you, with the contract, if that contract is to be non-renewed, you have a notification period, and with the elimination of the contract, you would not have that notification period, and it would essentially employees would be given notice not on an annual calendar.
I don't see any additional questions at this time.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for taking the time. My email address is Danny. Sorry, there's some feedback here. My email address is danny.dunston@isu.edu. If you have additional questions, you can email them directly to me if you'd like, or if you'd like to email them to Ginny, and Ginny can track them down or provide them anonymously. You can do that as well, but we're happy to just provide any information we can to staff during this time.